Hello and welcome to the AP Government Town Hall meeting. We would like to thank the elected officials for taking time out of their busy schedules to be here today to answer our community's questions. We would also like to thank the members of the audience for being here and the people watching on Facebook. Finally, thank you to the library for the use of the meeting room. They have made it possible for us to host here, and we appreciate them and the incredible library system our county has. As we might hear, the library is very busy tonight with many other activities occurring simultaneously, so please refrain from shouting out any answers to the Star Wars trivia occurring next door. If at any time our audience has a question, please write the elected official's name and the question on the orange sheet we have provided. Hold it up when you're done, and one of the students will take it to our moderators. We encourage you to ask questions, but we want to remind you to please be respectful to these officials. Before we begin, we'd like to turn your attention to the screen for a quick video.
Hey everyone, it's Andy. I want to congratulate you on all your hard work this year and welcome you to your AP U.S. Government Town Hall meeting. It is so important that Kentucky students learn how to be active members of their community because each of you has the power to make a difference. Today, you all have the opportunity to get hands-on experience and learn about how your government works. You'll learn about leadership, teamwork, and different opinions and perspectives. I know there are some great leaders with you today, like your judge executive, your mayor, your sheriff, state legislators, and many more that you can learn from. So take full advantage of this opportunity and make sure to have some fun too. I hope you're proud of how far you've come this year. I know I am, along with your teacher, Coach King. While some may call you the leaders of tomorrow, I believe you're already leaders today. I'm just keeping the seat warm for y'all. Remember to lead with kindness and always try to do what's right. While that path may not be the easiest, it will be the right one to help more of our people. Good luck and congratulations on all your accomplishments. I can't wait to see what is next for each of you.
Please know if anyone wishes to add to an answer, simply let us know, and we will get you the mic. Now, let us begin with questions the students have gathered from your constituents.
All right, this first question is to Mr. Spraggs. What are your plans to bring more economic opportunities to Marshall County?
We have already started on that by creating an atmosphere in this county that's attractive to businesses, more friendly, working well with our other elected officials, Chris, Danny, Rita, Hank, Gene. That is something that takes all of us, the commissioners, Marty, Monty, and Eddie, to work on constantly. We have to do our best to create an atmosphere that someone watches a court meeting or council meeting, they want to be a part of the community. And we have several projects in the works. We have a new economic development lady, and most of those things you don't hear anything about till there's an announcement for confidentiality reasons, but we have several things that we're working on, but mainly create an atmosphere that they want to be a part of the county.
Thank you. This is a question for Monty Collins. Who is your favorite child and why? Please answer honestly.
She might not want honesty. I don't have a favorite child, but
You can be honest. If it's the dog, I won't be mad.
well, that one does not ever talk back to me, so I do love her a lot. But I love both of you.
Okay.
Thank you for the questions.
That was just a joke question, but
Oh.
we'll do an actual question now.
Okay.
So the favorite is his wife who does all the yard work.
Yes. That's enough, Danny.
If you could change one thing about Marshall, what would it be and how would you go about it?
Oh my goodness, what a question. Gosh, I've never really thought about that. And I know this is going to sound completely corny and made up, but I don't know that there is anything that I would change about Marshall County, to be quite honest with you. you all know for sure, and most who know me, I think, know that I will never live anywhere else other than Marshall County. Was born and raised here, and will never leave. So I'll get back to you on that. How about I tell you tonight before you go to bed? Circle back.
Thank you for your answer, Mr. Collins. This one right here is for Marty Barrett. What has been the biggest challenge going from being a business owner to being both a business owner and a commissioner?
Learning how to manage time, for one thing, and realizing that I'm not the boss. I have to share with 3 other guys. And not just getting it done. If I say it needs to be done, just do it. Realize that there's other people for that now. So that was the biggest thing, adjustment for me, I guess.
Thank you. This is a question for Eddie McGuire. What is your opinion on a syringe exchange program? Do you believe it could benefit our community?
Benefit is such a, I don't know that it would benefit our community. I know there's a lot of opinions out there when it comes to syringe exchange programs. I just don't feel like you're treating the root issue of the problem by creating that system. So I guess in short, I would say no. I don't think that would ultimately benefit our community in making us safer, no.
Thank you for your answer. This next question is for any fiscal court member, whether that be county commissioner or Mr. Spraggs. Will new costs incurred from the tornado damage in December 2021 cause potential cuts in programs to keep our budget balanced?
Would you repeat that real quick, please?
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Will new costs incurred from the tornado damage in December 2021 cause potential cuts in programs to keep our budget balanced?
Short answer, no. We're in good shape with that. We had at one time just shy of $10 million in loans pertaining to that, and as we sit here right now, that has all been reimbursed. We do have some couple of things still yet to be done. We have paving at Cambridge Shores, and we did address that in our proposed budget. Our budget's not finalized yet, but we have a proposed budget we had a first reading on. And we did allow for that. That's coming from FEMA, that reimbursement. So hopefully if we have any problems on that, we'll be reaching out to these two over here and asking for some help. But we've been very, very blessed to have everything so far reimbursed, so it's not going to affect us, fortunately.
Thank you. This is a question for Chris Freeland. What is the most challenging issue you've addressed during your term?
The most challenging issue? Gosh, there'd be so many. I guess one, this one of the first ones that I was a part of and just played a small part of was the school safety bill, just because of what we were dealing with here in the county. And that one was a good one, and we followed that one up, Danny and I both did, with the Victims Privacy Act, which is one that, as you know, anyone who is murdered, raped, anything of that nature, horrific crimes, this would protect any video or photo that was used in the trial. So those are important measures. And I think just as our state in general, I think we're moving in the right direction. And there's so many different challenges. And I think each member of the House or Senate would probably say different challenges are harder than some for others. Like the things that we do in West Kentucky, sometimes are easy for us. Some of the votes that are controversial, and they are very hard to take for legislators in Northern Kentucky or in the Louisville area, and vice versa on some of the others. So, you know, it kind of depends on who you ask, but I would say there's several tough decisions, though.
Thank you for your answer, Mr. Freeland. So this next question is for Senator Danny Carroll. So in regards to gun violence in schools, what do you think Kentucky can do to further address this issue? Do you have any plans for any sort of legislation?
I think we have to continue along the same path with school resource officers. We've passed a lot of bills. I passed one, I think, not this most recent session, but the one before, that actually allows schools to create their own police departments. Not just a school security program, but they are actually police departments. McCracken has done this. There are several districts across the state that have taken advantage of that. And along with that comes opportunities for additional funding. There's training, there's funding, so I think that's a good thing. Dealing with firearms specifically, I have 3 bills that probably be filing as one bill this next session. One in relation to what we commonly refer to as assault weapons, where you have to be 21 years of age to purchase one. As it stands right now, you have to be 21 to buy a handgun, but you can buy one of these rifles at 18. That makes no sense to me. Another aspect of that is a waiting period, a 7-day waiting period. If you go to buy a gun, there's a 7-day waiting period before you can take possession of that. And then there's a new a law that's kind of going around the states right now that you've heard of all these red flag laws and a lot of efforts to pass these dealing with folks with mental illness issues. This particular bill would allow someone who suffers with a mental illness, when they are at a stable condition, where they can voluntarily sign up to take their rights to own a gun away. So if they get into a manic state, or they're not taking their medication and they go out and try to buy a gun, they won't be able to. And I think that's referred to as Donna's Law, if I remember correctly. So those are 3 things that I'm doing. And will those things make a huge difference? I don't know, but I'm to the point where I feel like we've got to do something to make a difference, and we've got to start doing some proactive things, and we got to take the politics out of all this. But I also understand, and I'm sure Eddie will agree, if you have a shooter that has it in their mind, they're going to do that, commit a mass shooting, they're going to do it, and whether they can get a gun legitimately or they have to go to the streets to get one, it's going to happen. And so we need to be more diligent with mental health issues and in recognition of that. I can tell you this, with even as early as child care in some of the facilities, stories of kids making threats to bring guns to a child care facility. And I know there's a process now of communications between the schools and in early childhood education. So the communications, the mental health part of it, early recognition, and taking things seriously. And again, Eddie can tell you this, you can identify kids, and those of you that are teachers, you can identify kids at a pretty young age that are going to have tendencies where they're at higher risk. And we need to be more proactive in addressing the situation with those kids to get them the diversion type treatments and mental health that they need to help them through to ensure that it lessens the risk of these things happening.
Thank you for the in-depth answer. This is
Monty,
a
that
question.
means I talk too much.
This is a question that either Representative Freeland or Senator Carroll can answer, and you can also bounce off each other if you'd like. Recently, the General Assembly eliminated our income tax while raising the sales tax. Given the typical Kentuckian doesn't go crazy in their spending, is there a guarantee that average Kentuckians will not be financially impacted?
So that was a House bill, and we did lower the income tax, which each time it's lowered a half percentage. It's about $600 million that families in Kentucky get to keep. They can spend it in their local communities, they can spend it, they can save it, whatever they want to do. And the sales tax, there was no raising the sales tax. They did expand the base somewhat, but it was on things, I think jewelry repair, things that you don't have to do. And I think you're going to see more of that. Kentucky wants to be a consumption-based tax state. And with that, you're going to see an expansion more of the service taxes. But each time the income tax is lowered, I think it's great for Kentucky. It's proven to be a good thing. We did this, or Danny and others did this in 2016, And, we were told by people, or they were told by people, that, this will be the end of Kentucky, we've got to have that money. Well, because more businesses came in, more investments were made, more taxes were paid because of that, and actually the coffers have grown. And that's the reason why Kentucky was able to lower the income tax rate. We've done it twice in the last 2 years, and the reason why is because there's more money coming in than bills that are needing to be paid. And, it's taxpayers' money, that's your money. And, we're spending it, making record investments in pensions, record investment in education, economic development, and still there's money left over. The state, we've got a $3 billion rainy day fund, which is great. Kentucky's never had any money in the rainy day fund. And it's enabled Kentucky to make investments like the tornado relief, Eastern Kentucky flood relief, the Blue Oval, the Ford plant in E-Town. That's because Kentucky has had money in that rainy day fund. And even with that, we're still able to cut the tax rate for Kentuckians. And I think that's a great thing.
Thank you for your,
Chris covered pretty much all of that. It's important for you all to know that this is not automatic, that this happens every year. There is a metrics to this, that certain conditions have to be met as far as revenue, and then we have to approve it also. So it's not automatic. And if there is if we start moving into a recession and revenue within the state starts declining, then we will stop that process where we're reducing that tax rate. Kansas jumped in both feet, and I have to admit that I pushed for that, to do away with income tax immediately and go directly to a consumption base, and probably in retrospect was not a good thing to do. And Kansas tried to do that, and they ended up having to back up and regroup, and it kind of messed their funding stream up in their state because they went too fast. But it's working in the Commonwealth, and the revenue is meeting expectations every quarter. Now, could we go into a recession at any month now? Yeah, and I don't think anyone's going to be surprised if that happens. The likelihood is it will at some point. So, that will probably slow down that process. But all the states you see that are booming right now, Florida, Texas, Tennessee, this is the system that they have. It's proven to work. And the taxes that we choose on consumption-based, and that's where our economy is as a country. We're consumers. And it's good to, to get away from where we're taxing income. And it balances it out. If you use the service, you pay the tax. If you don't use it, you don't pay the tax. What else could be more fair than doing it that way?
we appreciate the answers from both of you. Now moving on to our local mayors. Let's first start off with Mayor Dotson. What is next on your agenda for Benton's improvement?
Well, we're working right now pretty closely with our new economic development person, trying to get more businesses in. We have signed up with a grant for Retail Strategies, and it's a company that comes in out of I believe Atlanta, and they come through our city and they walk through and they tell us what we need, what we could do to fill up our storefronts that are empty, what we could do to improve the city overall.
Okay, we have a question for anyone right now that was from the audience. What and who inspired you to become public servants, and what goals do you feel you have met as well as plan to accomplish? So anyone can answer it, and we can give the mic to anyone.
Thank you. Well, I will say, and if you've watched many of our court meetings, you probably heard me say, but Gordon Hargrove inspired me to be a fiscal court member back in 1987, I guess, 87 or 88, whenever I started working for him at Hargrove's, and he was a magistrate at the time and then commissioner. And I just always thought how great it would be to do something like that. I mean, everybody that came in, you know, it wasn't about buying gas as much as it was they wanted to talk about roads or whatever it was within the county. And I just saw how much he cared about Marshall County and everybody in it. And that is what inspired me some 30 years later. Goal-wise, honestly, we've accomplished a lot, I think, since we've been in office, over 4 years, or a little over 4 years, taking on some tough, Judge Spraggs and I definitely had to take on some tough stances during our terms, and we had between each other anyway, a goal or at least an agreement between us that we could disagree, he and I, and then take different stances even on something, but go past it and figure out, it wasn't about him being right, me being wrong, or the other, or vice versa, even though I think I was usually right. But we talked about it. We discussed it beforehand. We still didn't agree. We voted differently, and we went on to the next subject. And that's what we've been able to do within this fiscal court. We'll hopefully do the same thing. So.
Really appreciate the answer, Mr. Collins. Would anyone else like to address that question, or?
Talk a little bit about my age here. I graduated Marshall County High School in 1981, and we had a teacher, Mr. Dalton Vaughn, who taught American government. I see some nodding heads out there, and I see Danny up here. He's the same vintage I am, so I'm going to tell his age too. And some other elected officials went through that period of time where you guys are sitting. And as far as inspiring for service, I mean, it was more of an inspiration to paying attention to how politics can affect your life, things that are going on halfway around the world. We used to take our classes on Friday. We'd read, I can't remember, he had a Newsweek magazine and things like that, and he'd just throw it out there, and we would talk about issues. Judge Telly was in that class. I think Danny was probably in that class. Bobby Miller is an attorney. A lot of folks were just, pay attention. It does matter. That was the inspiration for getting involved in government. Also, I have an uncle who was a longtime mayor of the community in which I live. And so in small town politics, it's a little different. It's more about activity. It's not setting policy that's really going to impact an entire region or really change how the state's fiscal well-being's doing. But in a smaller communities, you need to make sure you've got a well-run system, that we have community activists that care about your community and support the council and get involved. And and I encourage you, the reason I want to say this is that you're at that stage there as a class in your life, and Coach Carrick is leading you through that period. So kudos there. And I appreciate this town hall meeting. I wish we'd done this too. We would have had a blast with it. I can just imagine Judge Mike Miller in here in this format.
Yes.
Appreciate your answer as well. Is there anybody else who wants to address the question, or? Okay, so this next question right here from the audience to Senator Carroll and Representative Freeland. What are you currently doing to lessen the division and tension that exists between the two parties in Congress?
We're at a point within the state legislature. There are supermajorities in both chambers. So, and I don't mean this to sound demeaning in any way, but the other party really doesn't have any ability to cause any impact within the legislature, and that'll change someday. We'll be back the other way at some point. I guarantee it. But with that being said, I think it's still important that we work together, and I know within the Senate we do. There are reps that I've worked bills with. There's a program that a Democrat senator and I started for special needs kids. It's a PAGE program within the state Senate, and it's becoming a model for other legislatures across the country to follow. But we did that together. We both have children with special needs. We had something in common, and we work bills together, and it's pretty common that we do that. Now, we have some pretty heated debates on the floor also, but what we're starting to see now is there's more division between members of the Republican Party within the chambers. You're seeing more of a far right movement, members coming in to the caucus who are perhaps more extreme. I'm more moderate, central. I'm very conservative, but and just to be frank, I'm tired of radical people on both sides. And that's where we are right now. And even within our caucus, I've seen it more this past session than I ever have. And it's uncomfortable, but that's where we're headed. And we're struggling to agree on things within our own party because there are extremes there that you used to have with the two parties. So that's kind of where I see that we are right now.
And I think, too, that probably the news and social media probably makes it look like we don't get along at all. And actually, we probably get along a lot better than people realize. And I was looking at 125 bills this year. I would say probably 100 of them everybody was good with. Everybody contributed, everybody's on board. But those bills don't make the news. No one's, it's a garbage disposal bill or something. Nobody cares about that. But it's a big deal. But but those things everybody are probably on board with. So I think there's probably less division than people think there is. It's people get along better than people realize.
Thank you for your guys' answer. This is a question to anyone again, whoever wants to answer it. Nonprofits are a part of any local community's safety net, but also serve as an economic engine for the community. How can you intentionally engage nonprofits in the business of the city, county, or state to better utilize them, but also to strengthen them?
So since I run a nonprofit, I might be the best one to start this, but it's about the partnerships and it's about maximizing what each nonprofit has to offer, and it's about supporting the nonprofits. And I know with my experience, Mary Foley and her organization, our communities are far better for what we do with Easter Seals where I am and the services that we provide, and there are relationships. We're getting at our center, we're getting ready to open up an autism center. At some point, that's probably going to be 40 new jobs that are going to be coming to Paducah. So that's a great thing, and we as our nonprofits, the strength of our nonprofits, because they cover so broad of an area, it takes some of the pressure away from the cities and counties to provide certain services. So that's why I think it's important that we support those. And I know in Marshall County over recent years, that's been a struggle, and perhaps we haven't supported our nonprofits locally like we should have. And I think that's turning around, and I think we're seeing a change in that. But the employment that they provide, the services that they provide, it's invaluable to community. It's all about quality of life. And so that's why that partnership is so important.
We really appreciate your answer there. This one is for Mayor Colburn. What's up and coming for the Calvert City pickleball community?
The Calvert City pickleball community is a big group, and they're a very active group, and have a lot of people who've been introduced to the sport at one level, and at another level they're highly competitive. So we've gone from having the lines on the tennis court, and we avoided any kind of bloodshed between the tennis bunch and the pickleball bunch. But there's 4 courts. We have an upcoming tournament, and I don't have Blair with me to save me on the dates of that. But we do have an upcoming tournament, and there are areas that are already being discussed. I think they did let us get through the ribbon cutting on the 4 courts before we had the discussion on the next 4. But no, there's nothing in the budget probably for this coming year, but we're still developing that. So I don't know if we've answered that question completely or not, but we're proud to have them and have a lot of fun, and it's good to see the citizens out enjoying the parks and being active. You go by there, you hear a lot of laughter. So,
Thank you. This is a question for any mayor. Calvert City has done an incredible job developing sidewalks and trail systems, making it easier for citizens to enjoy the town. Are there any plans to continue that development in other parts of the county?
We actually, in the city of Benton, were awarded a $1.2 million TAP grant to be able to provide sidewalks throughout the west side of the city and make it more walkable to access businesses and the funeral home, Walmart, all through that area. And we don't want to stop there. We want to continue with it. So we'll be applying for some more. It was a 20% matching grant, so they provided $898,000 of that grant.
In the city of Hardin, we are in the process of trying to get grants for sidewalks to improve them. They're in the city, and even the ones that we have there now, some of the problems with our sidewalks, they're broken, and we did find out that they are part of a historical thing. So we got to be careful on how we handle these sidewalks. We can't tear them out, even though they're not worth a darn. We can't do nothing with them at this point. So we're going to keep trying to find grants so we can improve other sidewalks and add sidewalks to the city, over to our playground and over to our basketball courts. So we just move it one step at a time, and the wheels of the government run slow. I wish it would happen overnight, but it doesn't. So that's where we're at. We're trying, and we're going to keep on trying until we get it and improve the city of Hardin.
so Calvert City and sidewalks. Yeah, we've got sidewalks, and can you believe that was a controversial issue when I moved back to the town? What do we need a sidewalk for? And not only that, it wasn't just a sidewalk down one street. We had the audacity to put it down both sides. And so, anyway, what I wanted to say is we are expanding our dedicated bicycle trail. There's one segment left on Lone Valley Road, so you'll be able to go from Memorial Park Fountain area to ride a dedicated bicycle trail that's walking and golf cart friendly for a certain portion of it, all the way up to Kentucky Dam and back. And that's about a 14-mile round trip where you're on basically bike trail. You less hazard for distracted drivers mowing you over, but you do have to watch the intersections and crossings. So Calvert City, to add some complexity here, we've got a master plan for bicycling, say, and connecting various parts of the river to the town, to whatever. And when you develop these, as other mayors know, when you develop these plans, when you do have grant opportunities come up, you've got something to say, hey, we're trying to achieve this. So we've got a long-term vision of where we want to go. And, Calvert City doesn't really even have a place for our seniors to walk out of the weather. And it used to be the school system let, folks into the gym. Well, we can't do that anymore, and for all the reasons we know why. So, rural communities really suffered from these things like sidewalks. It seems boring, and I guess that's what local government's about, is all about services. But, it takes some tricks, and state government helps us where we can. We can get some national grants and stuff. But, yeah, thanks for noticing. And I think everything's moving up outdoors all over the county. So.
All right, thank you. Kentucky, this is a question from the audience, by the way. Kentucky ranks #1 in rates of domestic violence, and Kentucky's women and children are among the unsafest citizens. Marshall County is accessing domestic violence services at alarming rates. Does this concern you, and how will you use your influence to address this issue? This is to anyone who wishes to answer.
So this past session, I had the honor of being named the chair of a brand-new committee within the legislature. It's the Families and Children's Committee. And this topic will fall under my purview as chair. And we have already started looking at different areas, and it's going to be one of the priorities. And you all know with the drug issues that we have with poverty, all of those things come into play with this, and it just seems like there are way too many categories that we're on the wrong side of, and we're the worst in the country or the highest in the country, and those aren't good categories. And this is at the top of the list. So the mental health treatment, the substance abuse treatment, we're pouring millions of dollars into these programs throughout the state to try to affect this. And it's, you know, and I think it's all connected with the communities, and I really think that the biggest impact can be made at the local level through the schools, people that know the kids, that know the families. And, you know, I was one of those kids in Marshall County, and you talk about a village raising a child. I was one of those kids, and there are so many people in this community that helped, that took part of my life and inserted themselves into my life and made me the person I am today. And I think we've gotten away from that to a large part. So with that side of it, with the families where the kids have the support that they need, and they always have someone to go to, and you know, and I think there has to be, we're getting away from accountability in a lot of areas for perpetrators of these types of crimes, and I think we need to be careful about that also, that there needs to be a level of accountability. And you know, and Mary Foley's probably much better versed to answer that question than any of us up here from what she sees every day. But there are so many different factors, and we've got to put people to work. You know, we've got to allow families to be prosperous and thrive and have good quality of life, take the stress away by doing that. And just, you know, there's generational issues that go along with this. You have to break those cycles, and it's services like Mary provides that I think are the key to all of that within the local communities.
Thank you for your answer. Would anyone else like to respond, or?
I thought I was coming for Star Wars trivia. Sounds like they're having a pretty good time next door. But anyway, yeah, what Senator Carroll said is 100% accurate. As a prosecutor, of course, we have to take every case on its own merits as it comes to us. So we have to look at it at an individual case-by-case basis. But what we try to do is look at the reasons behind why we have this case in front of us to start with. And a lot of times you can find commonalities between the cases, and a lot of times it does boil down to usually one of about 2 or 3 things. It's either drug or alcohol abuse, or it's a poverty issue, or it's some other highly stressful event that's occurring at the home. And like he said, it's generational. We do see families recurring, unfortunately. But once we try to identify the problem, what we put in place is tools and resources in front of them to hopefully make sure that it doesn't happen again. And of course, if it's a serious enough case, then that person is going to serve jail time, and there will be no contact orders to separate the individuals. Unfortunately, what we see time and time again, Mary knows about this, Deputy Reynolds knows about it, Sheriff McGuire, Commissioner McGuire now knows about it, is that somebody will be arrested on Friday or Saturday night, and the victim will be in my office Monday morning wanting to drop the charges. And it happens over and over again. It's like clockwork. I come in on a Monday morning, and that's the situation that we're facing, and we just can't let that happen. I tell people, even though this defendant may not be guilty of the crime, he or she is presumed innocent until proven guilty, something happened to cause law enforcement to come out there. And we have to have at least some cooling off period so that parties can be away from each other, and we can try to figure out what went on and how we can stop it from happening again. So once again, an individualized basis, but attacking the root problems, like Senator Carroll said, I think is the way to get Kentucky out of the #1 spot in that unfortunate category.
Thank you for your response. Is anyone else wanting to answer, or are we moving on? There we go.
Looking back on the last 4 years as sheriff, I think we did make some good steps to get our victims some help. Seeing Mary here tonight, seeing that, what's the form called, the threat assessment that we do on scene, and I can't remember the name of it. Lethality assessment, yes. Anytime a deputy goes on scene to a domestic violence situation, the victim is offered services immediately. We have them make a phone call to the Merriman House, a representative there. We don't listen to the conversation. They talk to them. They offer them services to remove them from that home immediately. Because that's a lot of the situation is a victim wants to get help, but she's financially dependent upon her abuser, and then she doesn't have a way to get out. And that's really one of the key things that the Merriman House can provide if they're willing to accept that. And, I think that's very valuable. So even though Kentucky is behind, there is some good things there, especially when the police get involved. And you don't have to wait until, we show up to get that help. Everybody's got Google, Merriman House. They do a lot of things that they don't tell anybody about. There's a lot of resources there that really isn't public information until you're a victim, and then you need that. So,
Thank you for your response. Would anyone else like to respond to the question? Okay, moving on to the next one. This is also from the audience. This is for Representative Freeland and Senator Carroll. What is your stance on the legalization of marijuana in the state, recreational or medical?
We voted
Yeah.
different on one of them.
Yeah, since I have been involved in this issue longer than Chris, I'll start. But if there is any one issue that I have gotten more calls and more messages over in my 9 years in Frankfort, it's this one. And I have had the same meeting 1,000 times over the last 9 years, to the point that I don't take any more meetings on marijuana. And it did pass. I didn't vote for the bill for the medical marijuana, and it's not that I don't see a valuable use for that. I do, into life circumstances, but for me, I don't think the data is clear yet. There's still studies that are ongoing, and I wanted it to be set up in a way that was exactly like medicine, like a medicine's prescribed, and it's not. And what you're going to find certain doctors that are going to diagnose everybody that comes in with PTSD or something of that nature, and we're going to have a lot more stoned people walking our streets. It's happened, and I don't mean to be facetious about that at all, but that's what's happened in other states, and it's common. And do you want these people working in your businesses or taking care of your kids? And they say it's not addictive. I can tell you an employee that I had, she tested positive, and she was told if it happens again, she will be terminated. She quit because she said she was addicted to it and couldn't stop smoking marijuana. So don't tell me it's not addictive. It is. And with all that I've seen over the years as a law enforcement officer, as with Eddie, it is an introductory drug. It's where most of it starts in drug addiction. So I don't think we need that. I don't think it's what the Commonwealth needs. But I wish it had been much more restrictive. And had it been much more restrictive, I would have supported it. And as far as recreational, I'll never vote to support that. That's not what we need to be. And whatever money it generates, is it really worth it? And then what's next? We go legalize heroin, cocaine, meth, fentanyl, or what comes next? So I just think we need to stop it there.
I was okay with the medical marijuana, just on a very specific basis. I think it's going to be somewhat pricey. So, for recreational use, I don't think it will be used for that. And this bill, it's another year before it would be implemented. So there will still be some more restrictions that are put in place. And I would never support legalizing recreational marijuana. I know it may pass on a federal level, who knows? But the people of this county, I don't think would support that, and I don't support that either.
Thank you for your answers. This is a question for more of the local people. Will there be more money in the budget for the sheriff's office? The Those on the outskirts, like Aurora, don't have a lot of police pressure.
Our budget we have in front of us is, I'll say again, a proposed budget. It has not been voted on by the court, but that does include more funding for the Sheriff's Department. It also includes a solution to our communication issue that I hope Eddie will elaborate on here in just a second, that they have struggled with for many years, and that's a priority to me and the court as well. I think I can speak for them on that. We're going to get that resolved once and for all. They can't even communicate with each other half the time, even in close proximity. So law enforcement is very important to me. It is to this court, and we will certainly back our blue.
Yeah, looking at the budget the way it is now, the number one priority we had was the communication issue. And that's to the tune of, possibly up to $800,000. So that was one of the first things that we had to take care of. And not to get in the weeds too much, but Monty and Kevin did a fantastic job on this first, after the first reading, getting it. It was a relief. I had great worry because I've not seen a good budget since I took office, especially to start out with. We were always June 30th at 2 p.m. before they finally passed a budget. So it was really a great relief from a personal standpoint to see a budget that made sense and that wasn't manipulated severely. So, but I believe I don't want to put a number, but it's several $100,000 more than last year's budget for the sheriff's office, which was needed because we had been kind of targeted the last 3 or 4 years, so we were behind. And obviously you can't have everything that you need from a law enforcement perspective, but I think we at least gave them the basics that they need to kind of get back up to par. And when you use that number, inflation has a lot to do with that. Just our vehicle line went up $100,000. Just from the time I took office in 2019, cars were $24,000. Now they're $42,000. So a lot of those things, we've got to have cars to drive. I say we, but Sheriff Hilbrick's got to have cars to drive. And when you have, 30 vehicles, it really starts to add up. So I believe Monty and Judge Spraggs and our treasurer, they did a fantastic job meeting the needs, especially within reason for this year. So.
I just want to say a couple of things from a prosecutor's standpoint is that I look at Marshall County, and I'm not just talking about the sheriff's office, but Benton PD, Calvert PD, and the state troopers that we have dedicated to Marshall County, and I feel very blessed to be a prosecutor in this county. I was late being here because I was in Webster County almost all afternoon. Last June or July, I think it was, I was appointed as a special prosecutor in a jail case over there where drugs were being smuggled into the jail. We indicted 22 people over there. And when I first met with the officer, at that time he was a Providence Police Department officer, I was just going through the case with him and asking him, okay, what's your staff like here? How many deputy sheriffs are here for the county? And how many state troopers are here for the county? 0 state troopers. They don't have any KSP officers there. Their deputy sheriffs and their police departments are highly, highly understaffed. So, and Webster County obviously is a smaller county than Marshall County, so naturally they're not going to have as many officers. But compared to what we've got here, they've got it a lot worse. So I do feel very blessed to be here as a prosecutor and have the law enforcement that we have, because the fiscal court in both Calvert and Benton make sure that they have quality officers on the road that can help protect us all and keep us safe and be there to answer the calls. So thank you to the councils and to the fiscal court for always taking that into a high priority.
Thank you very much for your answer, Mr. Darnell. And actually, we're going to have another question for you right here. Do you want to start with an easy question or a hard question?
Let's do the hard one first.
All right. Drug use is said to be hitting our young people hard, with rumors of several students being disciplined. Is there a plan to be more proactive in curbing these types of situations?
You mean from a school standpoint or from?
Both county and school, just in
Well,
general.
I can't speak for what the school situation, how they're going to handle it from an administrative standpoint. I can tell you that anytime that drugs and school mix, my office takes it very seriously. There was a law that passed a couple years ago for juveniles that, and I'm not faulting our representatives here, but I can see the justification for it, but it kind of made it like, okay, you get 3 freebies before you end up in court. And, I didn't really like it. There's some aspects of it I think that are good, but that doesn't fly for me when it comes to any kind of drug that's found in school or on school grounds. That should be an automatic come to court situation for me. So we take it very seriously when any kind of drug issue is taking place at school.
Thank you. So we have another question.
This is the easy one, right?
Well, we don't have this question for you.
Oh, okay. All right.
This is a question for, I guess, anyone. We don't really have a specific person. Should Draftmanville be annexed into Benton? If no, why not? If yes, why? Did I say that wrong? Okay.
Lots of volunteers.
I can't honestly say that it should be annexed into Benton, but I think it's a great idea. It would expand the population and the revenue of Benton tremendously. We have a great water and sewer system. We have a gas company that's owned by the city of Benton. We could do all the utilities. Hey, I'm all in for it. So,
Anyone else want to answer that?
Just quickly from a state level, that was a big issue during the session, and we were getting slammed by mayors and judge executives, and we were caught in the middle of that. And commissioners. Yeah, and it's just it's a very difficult situation with that, and cities need to grow. In most counties, cities provide the quality of life issues, not in every county. So it's important that they're able to expand, but then you get into, counties are trying to do what they need to do, and as cities annex, if they annex in a school or something like that, there's tax dollars that they lose that are critical to law enforcement services for the sheriff's department. So our hope was that, and we always talk about in Frankfort when we have two parties that we respect so much that are credible and they're trying to do the right thing. We want to just lock them in a room until they come up with a solution. And most of the time they do. They get together and they work things out, and we still got a lot of work to do on this. I don't think any permanent solution has been resolved, but it's been very uncomfortable being in the middle of that because, and not speaking for Chris, but it's so easy to see both sides, and that revenue is critical to both sides. And what do you do? Who's right? Who's wrong? And the answer is going to have to be that both sides get their share. But what that share is, that's where the debate comes in.
We also have an addition to this question. What would it take to do this if it were to happen?
Danny, to enhance upon what you said, the county of Marshall is unique in a way because we're one of 8 counties that was grandfathered in, and the county is able to collect our payroll tax off everybody that works in the city of Benton, city of Calvert, city of Hardin, and anyone in the county. They also get the taxes off every business or every individual. So that really does not affect us. I know it does a lot of cities and counties, but it wouldn't affect us at all, so bring it on.
Does anyone have anything else to add?
Like your dad.
Well, I would just say, Danny had mentioned, it was contentious there at something that came up at the end that I don't think made the news at all. It was just amongst us. But I do think it brings one thing up at least that I'm not sure that most of our constituents realize that we do as a fiscal court and as mayors and council members, and that is lobby these two men and many like them, all legislators across the state. So when we have an issue that comes up like that, and Mayor Dotson is correct, it would not necessarily take away the occupational tax from us in Marshall County, but we have many counties that would be negatively impacted by that need our help. And that is one huge difference between us, the four of us on this fiscal court, and the two of them, is that they're making decisions that affect every county and every city, whereas our decisions are straight up local to us. So although it would not negatively impact our tax base per se, it's important that we stand up for others that would be negatively impacted, just as the mayor did on other cities. It did not affect yours, but you fought for those other cities that would be negatively impacted. And so, but we do get along. We just may disagree about annexation sometimes. But you know, the good thing is, when it comes to annexation, if those folks want to be annexed in, that's a part of that particular bill. It said, listen, if you have a project and they want to be annexed in, then that's fine. It's the other properties maybe that don't want to be that is an issue.
Thank you all for your responses. This is for Mayor Hank Logolinsky. What does, with your administration, what do you plan on doing to improve Hardin?
At this time, we have a water project that's going on, so we're improving that. We are improving our infrastructure with our sewage treatment plant. That's getting started and underway. I personally want to try and clean up the city of Hardin, and I want a place that is safe for our families and our children to grow up in. We're improving on our basketball court. We now got possession of that. We're going to redo all of that, and we're going to add a pickleball court inside that court, I hope. And then we have a new community center that we are going to clean up, remodel, and use that for community center. We are going to try and put in, if we can get the grant money, we want to improve our playground. We have to bring it up. A lot of the times when we get a lot of water and rain, that you can't use part of the playground, so we've got to fill all that in and raise it up above the water table. We are hoping to put in a splash park. There's so many things we want to do for the city. We are going to bring back our senior citizens, and their senior citizen building will be inside the community center like it was at the old one. It's just going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of resources and a lot of begging. See what we can get for free. See what we can get from the state. And anybody that is willing to donate, we will be more than happy to take that off your hands and improve the city. We are in the process right now of doing seeing about doing a garbage service in the city for our residents, so they don't have to go to the green boxes and haul their garbage. This is something that we're looking into now. It's a hard fight. You're always going to have some resistance on no matter what we do, but we're gonna just hang in there. We're gonna keep going, keep fighting, and try to make it better.
Thank you. This is a question from Mayor Colburn. We heard concerns that the water quality in Calvert is not good. What is being done to improve this?
The water quality is not good in Calvert?
That is the concerns that we've heard.
You mean drinking water?
I would say yes.
Drinking water.
Yes.
The drinking water in Calvert is hard. It's got a lot of calcium. We have a very good well field and it's hard. Other than that, our drinking water gets very high marks as far as quality. We do, when you buy water from bottled water from whatever, they have a whole lot different testing requirements than a municipal water system. Okay, so we do testing and we're in full compliance and above. So I don't really know where the concern on the water quality is coming from for drinking water. If it is the environmental question, Calvert City, we depend upon the state cabinets to take care of enforcement on environmental rules and that sort of thing. So we really don't have any enforcement powers. If we note problems, if our city employees or other concerned citizens come, we do have contact numbers and can, focus our contacts to the right cabinet members and even, federal EPA, if that was the question. I'm not sure I answered it.
I think you answered it. We
Okay.
know the question was kind of vague, but thank you for
All right.
answering it in multiple different ways.
This is a question for Mayor Dotson. What struggles have you faced being one of the only female political leaders in the county? What advice do you have for the other young women looking to take office?
I have not had any struggles being a female. They're all gentlemen and they've treated me kindly and they took me in and taught me what they know and have just been excellent to me. I would encourage all females to step up and run for offices. I always say we don't think better than men, but we think differently from men. So it's a very good combination to have both sides.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is a question for either Senator Carroll or Chris Freeland. What current upcoming bills are you currently most hopeful for in Kentucky?
Really quickly, though, we've got Mayor Dotson, we've got 2 circuit judges, Judge Stephanie Perlow, Andrea Moore. We've got Chrissy Greer and Tiffany Fralix Griffith. So that's 5. Am I right? 5? We've got 5 elected female officers in the county, so that's something to be proud of. And they're all fantastic at what they do.
And city council.
And city council, yeah.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, if you don't mind.
Okay. What upcoming bills are you currently most hopeful for in Kentucky?
One that we passed this last session, of course, it was not a budget session, so you can barely put any money allocated toward any projects, but we passed a bill. It was House Bill 9, and it didn't get much attention, but I think that one really has the potential to be something big for this area and for all of Kentucky, but especially West Kentucky. It's nationally, in the United States, it's one of the top 6 areas for potential economic development. So I think putting us on that big radar is very important. And what this bill would do, this next session, there'll have to be some money allocated to it. But it's so good for our cities and counties and local economic development. If there's a project that's coming in, a competitive grant or a match where, say, the county would have to put in $300,000. Well, they may not have $300,000, or the city of Hardin may not have that. What this bill would do is it would be a pool of money that those cities, counties, economic development grants the block grants, they could use that money, that pool of money, to make the match good. And I think, they can be more competitive for much bigger projects they wouldn't otherwise be able to compete for. And I think that will be a big step for this area. And the state of Indiana has done this, and in 1 year, they had an additional, I think it was about $11 billion investment, private investment, because they were able to compete for grants that they wouldn't have able to compete for otherwise. But I think that one has the potential to do something big for this state, and I would love to be a part of that here in this county.
For me, it's a bill from this last session that was kind of personal. You all are aware with Department of Juvenile Justice of all the issues they've had. There have been riots in detention centers throughout the state, a young woman raped. There are kids in our juvenile detention facilities with mental illness who sit in cells 24 hours a day with no mental health treatment, often in feces, naked. These are the stories that we heard across the state. When we got to session in January, it's when all these things were starting to come to light, and I was honored to be tasked with co-chairing a working group to come up with policy during the short session to address DJJ, which was in a complete state of crisis. And so I spent the month of January and February working with Representative Kevin Bratcher in the House, many staff members, many senators, many representatives. We had 2 meetings a week. We brought in all the administration. Secretary Kerry Harvey, our very own Kerry Harvey, was part of that, and talk a little bit more about that in just a second. But we came up with policy. Our juvenile workers within detention centers are getting raises. Our Department of Correction officers are getting raises. We came up with policy to restructure DJJ, and we addressed all the mental health issues on what requirements are. Put, I think, almost $100 million into facilities, training, staffing. So all of those issues we addressed, and I don't remember the amount exactly, I'm sorry, but and it was something that was done on a very short time frame. And the bill that I had, Senate Bill 162, House Bill 3, which primarily addressed Louisville area and the problems there, they made it through both chambers with very, very few dissenting votes, and neither bill ended up in a conference committee, which means we did our job. And I'm most proud of that during the latter parts of that, after the work group adjourned, I got to spend a lot of time with Secretary Harvey. We agree on nothing politically, but I got to speak with him frankly. He spoke with me honestly. We talked over the phone several times. I just heard from him yesterday, him giving me updates. So we came up with a great product, and my hope is that as a result of that legislation, we're going to see some significant changes in DJJ, and our kids, despite what they are accused of or crimes that they committed, it's going to be an environment that will be productive to them, and our kids there that have mental illness issues will be safe, and the staff will be safe. And we're talking assaults that had occurred frequently, and they couldn't keep staffing, and that's what led to the crisis, is just a complete understaffing throughout the state. And it got to a crisis level, and all these things started happening before anyone realized where we were. So that was a big deal for me in the session. Pretty proud of the work that we were able to get done. And again, a very much bipartisan effort with Secretary Harvey and even Secretary Friedlander with the Cabinet for Health and Family Services. And that was a really good example of the executive and the legislative branch coming together, Republicans, Democrats from both chambers. We all were in agreement, and that never happens in Frankfort, but it did with this, and we had a good product. It's not perfect. We're going to have to tweak it. There's more we're going to have to do as we move along, but for me, that's it.
All right, thank you for your answers. This one here is to Judge Spraggs. Why did you select Andy Pagel as Deputy Judge Executive? How involved do you want him to be in the fiscal court and leadership?
Well, my wife will
confirm this. I put a lot of prayer into that person, and a lot of people have asked me, how long have you known him? Are you friends? You know, all those questions. And no, we weren't friends, and I knew who he was, but that was it. I had spent a couple minutes with him when I come to the high school to speak one day, and I went to a meeting on soccer complex, and he was there, and he spoke at that meeting, and I was very impressed with him. And I come home and told my wife, I said, I would like to hire someone like him. And she said, well, you're out of luck. He's teaching still. So it wasn't a week or two. I was in Lexington at a meeting, and she sent me a text, guess who is retiring? So I immediately got in contact with him. As soon as I got back in town, we sat down and met, and I couldn't be any happier with my decision. And he's very involved in the day-to-day operations. There's several things that he's in charge of, HR and nuisance enforcement, several things that he does primarily by himself, but he's very involved, and I'm constantly getting his opinion on things, and very, very pleased with that decision.
This is a question for Mr. Collins. What are some of your top priorities as a commissioner?
That's a great question, Miss Collins. Well, we've done quite a bit of what I wanted to get accomplished the first term anyway, and that was do anything that we could do to, we talked about economic development, and I think before you get into this job, this position, you may think you really can control economic development, or you may even say, I'm going to bring 200 jobs to Marshall County or to Benton or whatever, and we do not do that. What we do is the support to allow someone who is an economic development director out there to sell our community. So our focus, I think, is on the infrastructure that we put into place out at Southwest 1 or wherever it may be within our county that makes Marshall County attractive for those businesses. And so we've done that. We have made major strides in bringing water potable water to folks who have never truly had it before. So we're getting that down now. Admittedly, that was a big reason that we're able to do that is because federal government, because of COVID, sunk a lot of money into that. But we've committed to. We could have taken that money and spent it on something else, but we've committed to bringing potable water to the people that have never had it before. And I hear all the time something about broadband, but continually I will ask that person, usually anyway, we all want that. Trust me, we all want those projects. But do you have good drinkable water? And if the answer is yes, then I usually say, well, there are still people out there that don't. And until we get them taken care of, I think that's our focus still at this point. So we've been able to do some of that, but we still have a little ways to go. We're working with Benton, and a big part of our ARPA funds going out to West Marshall and the Oak Level, and that's a big deal. Just so you know, I will say this too. When it comes to broadband, I want you to understand we all realize it's important. Trust me, I'm not saying that. I promise you. But if you haven't heard this number, maybe this is the first time you've heard it, but what it would take to bring broadband truly to the underserved and unserved within Marshall County is $28 million. So it is not a small project for us. So it will take time, and luckily the state has put money into that. But I think it was $350 million this last time, something like that. Think about that. If Marshall County, if it would take $28 million here, $350 will not go very far at all. So it would probably take more like $3.5 billion for us to be able to have true broadband across the state. So think about that, and then next budget, man. No pressure.
Appreciate your answer. Now this one is for Marty Barrett. How does coming from a business background make you different from another person in terms of county budgeting?
Well, I know exactly what it takes to survive. You've got to, tell you what, read me that question again, make sure I understood it right.
Sure. How does coming from a business background make you different from another person in terms of county budgeting?
Okay. And I've got it up here. If I can get it out, I'll be all right.
No pressure.
Yeah. Well, just from a perspective of having employees and having payments and knowing how to run that, then it doesn't take much to transition into this role, so I can see how it works from that end, because I already know how it does on a real small scale of how my business is, so I'm kind of familiar with it.
Thank you for your answer. This is for Eddie McGuire. What is the biggest difference between being a sheriff and a county commissioner?
Huge.
That was your question?
Oh, gosh. It is a lot different. You go from, being an advocate and responsible for, one agency. My job as sheriff was to lobby the former fiscal court for funding for my guys to keep them safe, to where they can provide a product to the community. As a commissioner, it's different because you hear from all of the agencies and all the departments and all the other elected officials, and they all have, to try to keep an open mind, they all have their own agendas, their own wants, their own needs. So that's been a big adjustment. I'm not the police anymore, so it's time to, I was fortunate enough over the last 3 or 4 years to be able to dive into these budgets probably more than most people need to, but because of the last 3 or 4 years, we had to learn every page of it, even though it only pertained to 3 pages of the sheriff's office. But, and I think, kind of going back to what Marty said, Marty was the owner, he's the owner of his company, so he knows the needs and the wants, and, he knows the difference, because if one of his employees has a need versus a want, if it's a want, it's coming out of Marty's pocket. So that's a big change. It's not that it's coming out of my pocket, but I'm responsible for making that decision of whether it does come out of the fiscal court budget or whether we decide not to. So it is different. So, but it's takes some getting used to, and I've certainly enjoyed the first 5 months of being in office, that's for sure.
Thank you for your response. This one is for Mr. Darnell. What are some additions that can be made in order to make our judicial system more efficient and effective?
It's a very open-ended one. I will say this, and we're seeing this around the country, and it started here in Marshall County with family court, which is we call it a specialty court. Not all jurisdictions are fortunate enough to have a family court, and the reason why I'm going to talk about family court here is that family court, if you have a family court, can deal with all the issues that may be related to that family. If you don't have a family court, like say for example Graves County, you may have two judges dealing with the same issues, and they may not necessarily know what's going on in each case. So obviously having everything in one case in front of one judge is more beneficial for that family going forward. And another specialty court that we have here in Marshall County is drug court. Drug court, every time I get a chance to brag on drug court, I always say it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. If we had, and I would love to see more funding for a drug court and drug court programs. And I know it's always a fight to try to find the money to do those things, as these two gentlemen next to me know. But drug court, among all the rehab programs that I've ever seen, is, in my opinion, the best. Eddie, I think you were on drug court. He served as a drug court coordinator. But if somebody goes to drug court and graduates, the chances of them falling back into the same old lifestyle is pretty slim, really. I mean, it has a fantastic success rate, at least here in Marshall County and Callaway County. There's one drug court that deals with both counties. So I'd love to see that. The people who graduate from drug court, we have graduations once or twice a year. Those are open to the public. I would encourage everyone, if you see an advertisement for a drug court graduation, go to it. It's open to anybody who wants to go to it. The people involved get up and tell their story. And I leave there thinking I'm probably not going to see these people again in my professional capacity. So that's one thing that I would love to see more funding for, is drug court. And then we're going to start seeing more courts like this, the more specialty courts. There's veterans courts around the country. There's mental health courts. I mean, mental health is exploded. The mental health problems that we have here in Marshall County and around the state and around the country, it's just unreal. I have one lady in my office who deals with that primarily, and it used to be that she would devote some part of her time dealing with that. Now she deals with that almost every day, all day sometimes. So it's just it's an unbelievable problem that we have. And the law is constantly trying to catch up with societal problems. So the more funding that we can get for specialty type courts and programs to address specific problems, the better off that the judicial system will be.
This is another question for you,
All right.
and possibly the state legislators if they have any insight in it. It's a long one too. How is the money confiscated during drug bust dispersed and used by federal, state, or local principalities? And has anyone ever taken steps to make that money available to families where parents are behind in child support if the person involved in the bust is behind on child support?
That's a very, very good question. And I have personal experience in this. I'm not going to mention any names, but this was probably about 10 years ago. There was a major meth bust, trafficking bust here in Marshall County. And before the ink was dry on the state charges, the feds swooped in because there was a lot of money there. I think it was like $75,000 in cash that was found at this particular location along with the drugs. And this particular person was, I want to say, $30,000 behind in child support. So obviously, ding, 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 that the bell went off, and I actually intervened. I filed an action to intervene in the federal charges to try and argue, give me that money. This money needs to go to these kids, okay, and these kids' mother. And I fought like crazy. I knew I had an uphill battle, and I can't fault the judge for ruling the way he did, because I think the law required him to rule that way, but I tried. And then I used that example to write, at that time it was Representative Whitfield, and then I think I wrote both senators, U.S. senators too, Paul and McConnell, and I said, look, here's the situation that I had. Did the FBI or DEA really need $75,000 over the mother who could have used that money? I never heard back. I don't think that that's probably likely to happen, because I think anytime you've got that amount of money, the feds are going to come in and take it, and they're going to use it for whatever they want to. But I would love to see legislative changes made particularly at the federal level, that would allow those monies to be diverted for other purposes.
The child support issue is something that comes up every year, and there are always discussions about how to best enforce that. Putting the offender in jail where they can't work, that's a problem. That's not a real solution, and I don't remember what the amount is that as a state that the parents are behind on child support. But I remember when I heard that number, it kind of blew everybody away that it was so high. But in relation to the drugs, there is and I think it's still the same way, and you all may correct me if I'm wrong, there's a formula that they go by when funds are seized through a drug arrest, and a certain portion stays with the local department, a certain portion goes to the state. So the funds are utilized to in a positive manner. But I think that's the first time I've ever heard that idea, and I think in certain cases that might not be a bad idea, and that may be something that we need to look at. Don't ever think that your questions and issues that come up go unheard. I have several bills that I've passed over the years that generated from home. Your county attorney there, we just had one this last session that he brought to me that we passed, and it was a bill that was combined with a request that a police officer in Paducah made to provide more protections for nurses in emergency rooms. So, and I've had bills that students have brought to me that we've passed. So don't think that can't ever happen. And it's questions like that that make us start thinking about what can we do to address this. It's not a bad idea.
All right, thank you for your responses. Here's another question from the audience. What is an issue you've come to be passionate about in your time of office? This could be to anyone. The person who wrote it specified to Mr. Collins, but anyone.
When I first took office as county attorney, this program started up about the same time, and it's at West Kentucky WKCTC, whatever those stand for. But it's called Team Launch, and it's based on a federal grant that comes in. And what it does, it offers vocational training for anybody aged 18 to 24, and it's free for that person. Okay, so the free thing is very important, obviously, for somebody that we may see coming in the courtroom, because a lot of the folks that we see are underprivileged. And the other good thing about this program is that, at least at the beginning, if they are able to get this person some education, some training, and get this person hired somewhere, the grant money will pay their wages. So that's attractive to the employer, obviously, right? Free labor, okay? So not only are you getting someone trained, but you're also helping out a local business person, more than likely. So anytime that I see somebody coming through that doesn't have their GED, aged 18 to 24, if they don't have their GED, if they've got some criminal problems, they don't have any skills, they don't have any direction in life, that's where I'm sending them, and I'm making it a requirement. It could be that I'll agree to dismiss your speeding ticket if you go there. It may be something more serious, like a drug charge, and I'll say, you go there and get you a job, don't worry about this possession of marijuana charge, we'll take care of it. You show me some effort into getting yourself some education and training, that's what we're going to do. And I've received a lot of positive feedback from the ladies who run that program. So I love it, and I send as many kids as there as I can.
I don't know that I'm passionate about one subject per se, and I know this is gonna sound probably strange, but I said when I ran for office that I thought that my finance background would make a difference, should make a difference in the budgeting. And so, as weird as it sounds to say that the budget is my passion, it is my passion is to get into that budget and truly study it and figure out ways that 16 to $20 million can be used to better serve this county. And I hope that I hope Judge Spraggs would agree that we've been able to do that. It probably took us 60 to 80 hours over the last 4 to 6 weeks working on that budget. Just sitting there going through that and going through with department heads. But it probably will not be the thing that everybody says, oh my gosh, I love Commissioner Collins because he's such a budget hawk. What a great guy or whatever. But I believe it makes a difference, and I can see it, and so that is my passion project, I guess you would say. Denise would say probably too much.
Appreciate your answers. Is there anyone else who wants to answer the question?
Thank you. I have a couple of things. The first thing that I've always wanted to see is to protect our first responders, to make sure that they have the proper equipment to do what they need to do, to make sure that they have the funding to do what they need to do. As you all know, that it's been a hard road the last 7 or 8 years, and there's times when our officers leave Benton City Hall that I'm not sure that they're going to be able to communicate with anybody else if there's an emergency and they need backup or whatever. And it's not just Benton, it's the entire county. It's all of our law enforcement, it's our fire departments, our rescue squad. I'm very passionate about making sure that they have what they need, and I work a lot at that. The second thing is our senior citizens. We lost all funding for our Senior Citizen Center about 4 years ago. Is that right, guys? We lost all funding, and most of our seniors were very elderly, and they were unable to fundraise or come up with any kind of funding to keep their center open. It closed ultimately, and we got a really good group together to start trying to fundraise again, doing bingo, doing several things that would bring funding back, and then COVID hit. So again, we were knocked off our block, and they started meeting up at the Joe Creason Community Center after the first wave of COVID went by, and continued having games, having lunch. The community was providing them with food to be able to enjoy up there. And then the second wave of COVID hit. So we've never been able to get reorganized again. That is a very big, passionate goal for me, and I've talked with Judge Spraggs. We do plan to get together and see what kind of interest is there. Do we still have enough to even meet and have fun? I know that several of them migrated to Murray. Several don't do anything, and these folks really, really need to be out in the community and doing things. Thank you.
As far as being passionate, I'm passionate for the whole city of Hardin. With everything I've heard about the city, with its the drugs that goes on in there, the drug deals and the meth houses and all that kind of stuff there that is in the city of Hardin. One thing comes to mind. I was at the office a couple of weeks ago and was standing out there talking with the employees there, and this gentleman comes in and looks at the girl and says, "Hey, I need you all to go down and turn my water off and turn my gas off." And he said, "I'll tell you," he said, "there's too many cops in this area." So I don't know what his problem was, but apparently he didn't want the cops around. I had talked with the sheriff and asked him to have more patrols out there. Sometimes City of Benton comes out there to help out the deputies. Deputies are making more rounds in our city. So I'm hoping that with this influx of the police being there, that it will help deter some of the drug activity in our little city. I've had complaints from people about it, and I'm going to do all I can to clean it up and make Hardin a safe place for all of our families out there.
Thank you all for your answers. Is there anyone else who would like to respond to that question? All right. Now this is for the audience. Is there any last final questions that you wish to ask? You could bring them up here, I guess.
Okay, and finally, is there any closing remarks of any of the elected officials that they'd like to say? And if not, we're going to get on to our final question.
Let's pass it down the line.
As a new mayor and new to politics, the support that I have received from Mayor Dotson, other mayors, other city officials, has just been a blessing. This is a long, hard battle for anybody, but for somebody like me that's new into the politics and new into this kind of thing, I really appreciate everything that the city officials do and the county officials, and I just want to say thank you to all of you all for all of your all's help. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you to the students that put this together. This is one of the highlights of my year, and we don't really look forward to these types of events, but you all do such a great job, and it's very relaxing. We feel free to talk, so I appreciate everything that you've done. Chris Carrick, you and I don't agree on much, but my friend, you are the epitome of what a teacher should be. And in all my travels throughout the county, I hear nothing but good things about you, from your students to parents to my family members. And I appreciate everything you do, and it's okay that we don't agree on things. There is a respect there, and I want you to know that.
I'm very thankful too. I wish we would have had this when I was in school. We had civics and Kentucky history, and I think if you knew who Daniel Boone was, you could get a B. But I think it's great. You know, more kids involved in government and learning how things happen and the process, and really looking at the truth of things and how things work, and you know, more so than just looking at a social media post, really digging in and finding out what's needed, what's the truth. But I think that this class does a good job at that, and I'm thankful that we're allowed to come and express our views and answer questions. I think that's good for us. It is uncomfortable sometimes when you don't know what the questions are, but it's actually good for us. We're accountable to you.
Well, again, thanks for having me again. This is the second time in just a few months that I've been here, so I guess maybe I did a good job the last time, maybe. But I learned a long time ago that I should never, ever say, well, now I've seen it all, because as soon as you say that, something else happens. So I want to read you a little story about what I got today in an email, and this is about our water tank in Oak Level that we're working to get in operation. Okay, so let me get to the right spot here. And they were out there looking to clean it today, okay? So while flying the site with their drone, they noticed that the top hatch was open on the tank, and they contacted the city to get a lock to put on it. When they climbed the tank, they spooked 2 large owls out of the tank prior to entering. When they entered the tank, they identified a nest in the overflow box inside the tank with what appears to be a baby owl. Oh, you're supposed to say, oh. So the baby owl would not leave the nest because he or she just can't fly yet. So as you may or may not know, owls are protected species, so you can't move the owl. So we have to let the baby owl grow up, fly out of his nest before we clean the tank. And there are birds that have been in the tank, obviously, so you know what birds do in and around the nest. So we got to wait for the baby owl to grow up, fly away, clean the nest, and then the Oak Level water tank can be charged.
That's why government goes slow.
want to echo the comment. Thank you all for having us here. This is an awesome program, and we are all happy to be here. It's great. I just want to say what a privilege it is to work with Chris and Danny also, but to work so closely with these four men sitting here in front of you. I've been in constant contact with Jason, either phone call, text, office visit sometime for legal advice and advice and opinions on day-to-day operations, and he is certainly a huge asset to this county. We're very blessed to have him. The other three gentlemen here, anything that I have asked of them, they have certainly come to the call immediately on various things, and very, very blessed to have them and the working relationship. We're all four of us are different in many ways, but we all four have a common goal, and that's doing what's best for Marshall County, and that I can assure you we will do.
You know, I hear people, first thing, all they want to do is grow up and leave Marshall County. And I never understood that. I've always loved Marshall County just like it is. I don't want it to grow a whole lot. I want it to sustain what we got and stay the way it is, because if it gets too big, it won't be Marshall County. It won't be what we got now. So there's a happy medium to try to find there between dying and not growing. And that's like our local Tater Day Festival. It just kills me that they have spring break the same week as Tater Day, because so many people leave town for spring break, and they miss a festival that's 100 and something years old, and they're right here in their back door. So that's, I guess if I have a passion, that's what it's gonna be. It's gonna be Tater Day. And Monty, I am tickled to death that the budget is your passion, because it's not mine.
Well, I think you do look around, you know, anything to do with the road department or any of those things, they can go to Marty and he's gonna know exactly what they're talking about, where if you go to Eddie, probably not gonna know. But anything on the law enforcement 911 side, you know, anything on the budget side, I mean, it's a pretty well-rounded group of individuals, I feel like. We may live to regret that in a few years. We won't be as well-rounded, but thank you all for having us. I mean, like, I think Chris said it best, Chris Freeland, you know, we are accountable to you all. Inevitably, we want to know what you all want us to do with your tax dollars within reason. You know, no spaceships or anything like that, but, and to get back to the basics, like Marty said, you know, we love this community, we love the close-knitness. Let's stabilize what we have, and I think we've done a great job, or so far on the budget. Like you say, it's not approved yet, but to stabilize what we have, and then we can grow in the future. So I'm excited.
Ditto. Thank you all for having me. I thank you, Mr. Carrick, for having this. It's interestingly enough, my daughters did not even tell Mr. Carrick that they were my children until, 8 weeks into the class. So I don't know if they were waiting to see if he was going to say something negative about me in class so that then they could tell me. But anyway, I know they're proud, but it would have been nicer to. Anyway, but thank you all, and it is an honor to be able to be in this seat and represent my district in Calvert, Sharp, and Palma and Gilbertsville. So if you ever need anything in that area, give me a call.
What's your number? What is it?
It's on real estate signs around there.
I don't know about the protocol of me talking after this group. I really don't. But one of the early questions, I don't know who landed it, was what would you change about Marshall County? And I've been kind of, tracking some of this, and this is my first one of these, and thank you for having us, Mr. Carrick. But one of the things that I would have wanted to change about Marshall County, I do want to change about Marshall County, is just to make it overall better. And one of the big things for me is when we have differences in the cities and the county government, and it's one thing to have differences and work on solutions. It's something altogether different to try to elevate one group over the other or throw elbows, so I have this and you don't have that. And it struck me, you know, that was the very first question tonight, and I've listened to the answers, and I've worked with, I think, everybody around the table. And I think we're moving in that right direction of what I would change, okay? So I really see positive change in the county and the leadership we have, and I really appreciate you guys. When you run for office and you get in office, especially in today's age, all of us, even the mayor of Calvert City, you take a lot of heat. There's not any decision that we make that in about 10 minutes, somebody can't be on social media tearing it down with a bullhorn. And I ask those citizens who have something other than just a desire to gripe to pick up the phone and engage these individuals. I mean, as a city council member for, heck, I don't even want to talk about how many years, and now mayor, is if you call council or if you call commissioners, they're going to listen to you. And you have a place at the table. I mean, all of us strive to give everybody all the respect that they deserve. And we want to give all the constituents 100% of respect and engagement in the process. I want to too. And it comes to a point with you give them all the respect you can. And in social media and in the councils, we have 21 seats in the cities. This year we had, I think, 2 races. 2 races. And okay, so does that mean everybody's happy and we're doing a great job? Or does nobody care? Well, that's probably part of being happy. But another part of it is folks don't want to put themselves out there just because of how much heat you get, how quickly. You know, the strife and the failure to work together. And I tell you, you know, even the little nickel and dime things that are just business for a city or whatever, and folks really get on a tear about it, don't want to engage you in constructive comment, but just want to just scream from the rafters about stuff. That's not constructive to making Marshall County, our state, or our country better. And so, you know, I see, I hope, and I think we're going to get it, this spirit of you know, making improvements and being better at agreeing on our differences. I heard Danny say that a few times today. You know, constructive political dialogue is what it's about. It's not about a bunch of screaming and hollering and this and that. And that's just something that you know, that just struck me from what would you change about Marshall? Well, we're going that way. The thing that really drove me to get a seat on the council was certain things in Calvert where, you know, that we weren't agreeing, we were showing out. And I just couldn't stand it, and I ran the first time. And then you get into the business of government. But I encourage all you students and anybody who might be listening, is you got to stay active in your governmental process, because, you know, the taxes go here, and big decisions that seem small, like pickleball courts or sidewalks, that's quality of life issues. And if nobody steps up to care about them, what happens? So anyway, I don't know how to close this comment out, so please take it away. But I appreciate each and every one of you guys and one gal, plus the ones that aren't here, about being involved and coming up. And it's been a pleasure in my years as a councilman, as a mayor, to work with everybody. And welcome.
Okay, we have a comment from someone in the audience. I've been to several town halls through the years, and this by far has been the best. Congratulations, Coach Carrick and all AP government students. Applaud, please. And then before we close out, we have one final question. Who would win in an arm wrestling match, Commissioner McGuire or Commissioner Barrett?
Who would win a race? Who would win between Jason and Monty? Oh, we know that.
The race will be scheduled for 8:15 p.m. outside. So this concludes our annual town hall meeting. Thank you to all elected officials for taking time out of their busy schedules for coming here to answer some questions we had. And thank you all to the audience members and those on Facebook for asking your questions, paying attention, being actively involved in your community. That's all. Good night.